Hello, it is Wednesday, December 21st, 2022 at 5:57 p.m. Eastern Time, USA. It is the winter solstice. It has officially begun at 4:47, about an hour and 10 minutes ago. This is my video journal. I'm Mitch Miller. Got a big program for you today. I had to do something on the winter solstice, but this is actually meant for next Wednesday. The challenge part is meant for next Wednesday. I like to give each rank a week, and what I'm talking about is that I'm systematically challenging each rank of the United States military to a duel using non-lethal pistols or a wrestling match. So let's start with that. We're under the rank of Private First Class. If you have achieved the rank of Private First Class or its equivalent in any of the branches of the United States military, I challenge you to a duel using non-lethal compressed air-powered paintball pistols. Since we do not have the prototypes, we will revert to a wrestling match using scholastic rules. If you win the duel, you delay me challenging the next rank down in the military. There's only really one or two more, by 6 months, and you will receive a piece of my art valued at millions of dollars. If I win the duel, you must find money in your budget to fund my smart weapons company, the first task of which is to produce these non-lethal dueling pistols to be distributed strategically to the population. If you cannot get that budget passed, which a huge budget just passed through the federal government, lots of money went up, even though we're no longer technically at war, even though we're at war with North Korea forever. If you cannot get that budget passed, you must use some of your own personal money to fund the company. In return, you will get a stock certificate giving you partial ownership over the company, and or a piece of my art valued at thousands or millions of dollars. That's all I have to offer at this time. If you ignore or refuse this challenge, you are first and foremost a coward, and secondly, the death and blood of any military action around the globe is on your hands for not validating and justifying this form of warfare, modern warfare, a form of modern warfare that values marksmanship and hand-to-hand combat skills, which are taught to just about every military personnel around the globe. So we have that out of the way. Today's program is brought to you by Jim Dew. It's Jim Beam and Mountain Dew for when you want a little caffeine and a little bit of liquor. Hoodoo, Jim Dew. It's surprisingly refreshing. Big day today, the winter solstice. I'd like to note that President Zelensky of the Ukraine came to the United States, is meeting at the White House possibly right now. He chose the winter solstice, a day that any non-sectarian freedom fighter would mark on their calendar and at least acknowledge, if not celebrate. And of course, I have to have a few cocktails on the winter solstice. I'm honored that President Zelensky would come to the United States. Welcome. I hope the Wi-Fi wireless waves in Washington, D.C. aren't too overwhelming, but we live in a world where they probably have some kind of KGB satellite pointed at your head at all times trying to knock you out, which I'll get into later in the bulk of this program. I just want to briefly say that I could do several video journals about Ukraine and President Zelensky. I would be honored if you were the first to accept my royal wood, my board, to make the dueling pistol handles out of American wormy chestnut. I think that's appropriate, but let's not wait if he doesn't want that gift. But if you want to leave somebody behind to rendezvous with me, I can keep a secret. as well as the next person. However, I don't think the location mile marker 70 is going to work in your situation, President Zelensky. I don't think your adversary, which I will not even say his name, would come to the United States for fear that he would be arrested for war crimes. So we would have to find some place in Eastern Europe or in your nation to settle this with a pistol duel. But let's set a goal of, if this atrocious war isn't over by the longest night next year, we will find a way to put these two adversaries on a landing pad to duel for the appropriate territories and subdivisions and so forth and so on. That's a goal. I'm not going to hold anybody to that. May the new year bring peace to Ukraine, to the world, and happy solstice to everyone. So I'm not going to do a Ukrainian episode, rather speak in person. I'm happy to come to Ukraine if the Ukraine wants to have me there. It's a little dicey in Kiev and other places, but if that's a request by the leader of Ukraine and his leadership and military, I would come there. And again, I want to start a technology company. I have a lot of ideas up here in my head of how we can deploy a technology company worth billions, if not trillions, and it would be great for the GDP of Ukraine or any European nation if the United States doesn't choose to act and deploy this technology company. So what I do want to talk about is the Home Depot. I touched on this before. I worked at the Home Depot, experimented with the Wi-Fi, messed with my head. I'll say this. I worked for a company that contracted with the military. And it was during the Bush administration, 2007, 2008, and they were supplying building materials to Iraq. And the company's stock went down consistently almost the entire time I worked there, and the CEO, Bob Nardelli, resigned or quit and got like a $190 million compensation package, even though the entire time he was CEO, the stock value went down. I didn't buy any stock of Home Depot because as part of your employment, you could put funds in a separate account to buy stock from the Home Depot. But it would accrue, and then it would only buy stock on certain days of the year, like 2 or 3 times a year. So in my mind, I thought, who's to say these executives, this corporation, isn't driving the value of the stock up right before those specific days that the employees get to buy stock so that they have the least amount of ownership in the company. That's what these corporations do. So I didn't buy into I think it might have been tax, I don't think it was tax exempt, but you had stock options, but you had to buy, automatically bought it on specific days. What I'd like to propose here is a class action lawsuit for anybody that worked in the new Home Depot, the East Liberty Home Depot. And this would be an interesting class action suit. It was a new Home Depot. It was in a black neighborhood with about half of the employees being black or from other nations. I worked on the night shift with an Irishman. I worked, hardware was Nana, he's from Africa, I think he still works there. There was a woman from Africa, she was a cashier, I think she still works there. So there was a variety of, what was his name? Safi from Iraq actually worked there. I worked in the lumber department with Safi from Iraq. he was a stonemason in Iraq. He was a bricklayer, a block layer. So this would be an interesting class action suit. What I'm proposing here is the Nardelli rule, that if the United States military contracts with a private corporation, no money that it uses to purchase any materials or any kind of contract through them, all of that money none of that money can be used for executive compensation. It can be used for employee compensation, for materials, services, things like that. None of it can go to the executives. And that company has to open up its books and allow the military to track that, to be able to track where their money is, where that taxpayer money is going, and that is not going to the executives. And I'd like to know how much of that $190 million Bob Nardelli got, how much of that came from the taxpayers, how much of that came from military contracts. If you can provide that to me, that would be great. And maybe I could get a share of that, since I worked there in the lumber department. We could share it with all these international employees that work there. As I said, I had a friend that hurt his back there. He got a settlement, largely due to my explaining to him that he should go to a private physician and just go say, I need a physical, and then when he's in the office, explain that he hurt his back at work, instead of going to the company doctor. But the other person I'd like to talk about is Stephen. He worked in the hardware department. Friend of mine, we opened the store together almost every day that I worked. He lived in Lawrenceville. He's a homosexual. He was my first gay friend, and really changed my outlook on homosexuality and things like that, as a naive young 20-something working at Home Depot. Stephen was older than me, about 10 years older than me, 10 years older than me. He previously worked at Cirque du Soleil and security, so he was exposed probably to satellites in their early stages, because they probably were doing live broadcasts in different countries. He traveled through Europe in Cirque du Soleil, so he probably had a beam of something pointed in his vicinity at certain points. Then there was this experimental Home Depot Wi-Fi that was being rolled out to run the mobile devices, to run the carts that keeps track of inventory, among other things. Stephen had a heart attack at age 30. Died in his sleep. He passed away, and I went to his funeral, and I verified that he was in a coffin. He was dead. I'll never forget, he got me a bottle of Francis Ford Coppola wine for my birthday, because he knew I was a film guy. He was hoping I'd become a big director someday. Stephen gave me 2 motorcycle jackets, a female jacket that my wife never wears, and the motorcycle jacket that I wear when I ride my motorcycle, that was featured in my music video, Something Just Ain't Right Here. It's the jacket I wear. I still have that jacket. I should wear it more often, I guess. But that was in honor of Stephen. And here is his information. That's his phone number. This was a business he was trying to start, photography and massage. He offered to give me massages, but it wasn't aggressively whatever, you know. I tried to take him up on it, but never came through, because I was working in the lumber department and it was not, my back was not in great shape. That's his phone number, so if you can trace that and see if his little probably flip phone was had some kind of spyware on it that linked up with his heart and gave him a heart attack, or if that experimental Wi-Fi at the Home Depot gave him a heart attack. But he had a heart attack at age 30. Now, he was a smoker. I don't know if he had a family history of it, but I thought I was going to be friends with him for 10, 20 years at least. I forget his last name. Short, kind of little bearded ponytail guy. He was a good guy. And so I had a psychotic break. Steve had a heart attack. Who knows what else happened to some of these people that worked at Home Depot. Oh, there was also a female from Poland. She had a twin sister. She lived in Lawrenceville. So we have an international cast and crew that you could get Nardelli's compensation package back, United States military, and give it to us, because who knows what they experimented on with us. So that's my suggestion. The Nardelli rule, the military should have established it a long time ago. Maybe they do have some kind of rule about executive compensation. Probably not. I worked for a government, a corporation that contracted with the military and the Defense Department during the Bush administration. So anyone that worked at the Home Depot in East Liberty in 2007, 2008 should qualify for some kind of compensation. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Can't think of anything else I was going to say. It was a female-led store. The general manager was female. So I appreciated that. It was a very progressive store. There was nothing like working there when Obama got elected president and seeing half of the people, primarily the black employees, celebrating, and the other half, a bunch of older white guys, not too happy to see that result. It was an interesting experience. But I voted for Obama. I was happy. That's why I wouldn't hold Obama liable for this situation. The military should have known about it if there was experimental Wi-Fi being used in these Home Depots. So something to investigate, probably never get investigated. You know, the FBI won't touch it. NSA doesn't care. The military might care with what I'm saying, but who knows. So don't know my schedule next week. I'm going to be working days, so I shot this for the solstice and for next Wednesday. Both this video and the previous video will get posted on my basement computer. Posted a couple things on the internet today for the solstice, and that's pretty much it. Join me next time. I'm not sure what I'll talk about. It'll be in the new year, and we'll start to wrap this up. We have to. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say to President Zelensky, I wanted to give this tidbit of information out. Sorry, you had to watch 19 minutes of this to get this. I meant to say it earlier when I was addressing Zelensky. I'm releasing this because you came on the solstice. Rest assured that if the United States military doesn't choose to have me inspect their vehicles for the hackability of the autonomous, semi-autonomous features in audio systems, I am going to extend this program to every embassy in Washington, D.C. to put forward this program. I'm going to do it on another video in case the military is holding on to these videos and keeping them top secret. I asked them to release on the 12th. I will release another video where I extend this program to every embassy in DC to coordinate and converge on, not converge, but organize a system where we can inspect embassy employees' vehicles in Confluence, Pennsylvania, and also verify mile marker 70 as a possible location for resolving issues that should have been resolved like this years ago, when the technology was there to bring pistol dueling back. It should have been deployed instead of war, death, destruction, explosions, and so forth. Other than that, I apologize if the Russian tactic of knocking out infrastructure has anything to do with my peace treaty. I feel that by far trying to prevent nuclear meltdown and destroying territory for thousands of years unlivable is a better solution than the alternative. But I don't even know if the Russians read my peace treaty. It's out there on the public internet for anyone to read. I do apologize for the cold and bitter winter that Ukraine is going to face, and I hope it's better than a nuclear meltdown or multiple nuclear meltdowns. Hopefully the energy infrastructure is there, that we can get the people the heating fuels that they need. And I'm happy to wield a chainsaw and go out in the countryside of Ukraine, cutting wood, delivering wood. I'd rather drive a wood delivery truck than a propane tanker for obvious reasons. But I'm happy to do that. So contact me if you'd like to see a Yudkin in Ukraine come to fruition. Thanks for watching, and take care.